Do I have to do something?
Just keep talking, Phil. I'm sorry.
Just keep
I
talking,
forgot
okay?
I forgot to record.
I've got a box in the middle of my screen, okay.
Just press got it. Does it, Phil, there's a box.
And when we create these AI robots, we measure them by human intelligence, artificial intelligence measured by human intelligence. Now, our artificial intelligence is not anywhere near approaching the human. We are not creating artificial intelligence human beings, but we're measuring them by humans so that we measure their performance by whether or not it approaches the human ability. And I think that's very important. And of course, the closer that they get to doing what we want them to do, the closer they get to being like us in some respects. And that's what I call functioning life. It's very important that the standard that we use when we make AI robots is human intelligence. That is the measure. I think it's important to try to understand why I call it functioning life, not actual human life, but functioning life. The more that the AI robots approach human performance, you can think of all the things that robots do, whether it's playing chess, whether it's waging war, whether it's doing other things like serving in restaurants. My part of Chicago now is opening a restaurant. It'll be the first restaurant that will have robots delivering food. That'll be a new experience. The more that these robots approach us, the more they become functioning human life. I have formulated a general principle which says basically that, and the more the robots approach our capabilities, the more we can say that we are creating our own co-creator. Not so much has been done with this in religion or theology, not really all that much in philosophy, but novelists, some of them science fiction writers, others aren't, have done a great deal with this issue of functioning life. If you're familiar with Marge Piercy's novel, He, She, It, you'll know about this. If you like the Blade Runner movies, you know, they are gripping movies that approach this theme directly. Those of you who know those movies realize that the artificial intelligence robots in the movie have attained a close enough approximation to the human that they understand their own mortality. They were built to self-destruct after a certain number of years. And when they realize that they're very upset, and the movie spends a lot of time on their search for the designer who designed them. And when they finally get him cornered and tell him that they don't want to self-destruct, he says that it's impossible to change the programming. Some of you may have read Kazuo Ishiguro's new novel called Clara. It's a very interesting novel. Clara is a companion robot. And the novel has to do with Clara's being a companion to a teenage girl, and Clara ends up in the junkyard for old, unused, useless robots. Companion robots are a very important thing. You know, if you go, we have to realize that artificial intelligence and robots are all around us. I have artificial intelligence on my TV. When I ask Alexa to tune to a certain channel for me, she does that. If I tell her I want music on a certain theme, she finds the music for me. It's in our smartphones. Many people have it in their appliances so that they can talk to Alexa and turn the stove on or change the the thermostat. And if you go to Amazon, I'm not going to go into a lot of detail here, but if you go on Amazon and you Google companion robots, you will be amazed at how many you find in the Amazon selection. Many of them between $250 and $750. One of them is named Buddy because it's a companion to children. They do all sorts of household tasks. And it is the case today that billions of dollars are being put into AI robot research by the federal government, by academic institutions, and by industry. And in fact, one thing that President Trump did in 2017 was to establish the Select Committee for artificial intelligence. And they formulated, it's a very interesting document to find on, you can Google it. And among other things, it has a very sketchy ethics section. It's not very profound, but at least they started to work on the ethics of it. AI, of course, plays a very increasingly large role in medicine. Medical schools and medical centers are very alert to the possibilities for AI, and it also can be used in warfare, in guiding the drones that carry out so many terrible things and assassinating people, and other ways that it's used. So, as I move into the philosophical and theological reflection on this, I'm very impressed by what I call the proportionality between God, humans, robots, and robots, humans, God. You know, we speak of ourselves as carrying out God's work. The Jewish concept of mitzvot is that by doing the mitzvot, by carrying out the commands of law, Jews are actually extending the presence of God in the world. My denomination has a motto that it uses called God's work, our hands. We talk quite a bit about us doing God's work. Do we think that we are God? No. We may not even like the word godlike, but we may understand that we believe we are functioning as God would function in the world. And we talk about Christians talk about loving other people as Christ loves us. Very much an extension there. But we are not God. We are not godlike, but we are functioning, in a sense, have to be careful here, functioning like God in the world. So it's not so unusual to think that we create AI robots that increasingly function like us in the world. Now, we're a long ways from that. There's no AI robot that comes anywhere close to human capabilities, but it is still the standard, the measure, or the goal in our creating these robots. I think there's another interesting point about this creating AI robots. You know, Mirsha Eliade, the great religious scholar of world religions, has some very interesting things to say, that when humans create things, they are mimicking God. That plays out in quite a few of our customs, you know. In some parts of the world, houses are built in a certain way to be reminiscent of the kingdom of heaven. Often in the older days, I don't see it so much now, when we built tall buildings, we topped them off with a quasi-religious ceremony. In my mind, there is no question but the fact that in our creating AI robots, we are mimicking the creative work of God. Now, this can be very dangerous. It can be arrogant. It can be full of hubris. And of course, what we do with our creations, including our AI robots, can be all of those things. But it also can have the intention to be good, to do good things, to do God-like things in the world. And I think that's an important part of AI robots research too. Its use in medical centers, for example, is for the benefit of people. Its use in drones on the battlefield is to kill people. It can be hubris and very dangerous, or it can be a beautiful creative work that seeks to be obedient to God. I think that when we, and this is really my final point, I think that when we create these AI robots, we're into what I call deep creating. We're not just creating casually, but deep creating. And in that creating, we actually encounter God. And we have to ask questions, theological questions. People often don't consider them theological. But for example, in the use in medicine, we come up against the question, what is the point of healing? What is the purpose of healing? It's to improve the quality of life and longevity. Is this really what God has created us to do, to live as long as possible? Questions like this come up when we ask the purpose. And the same with the drones. Is it really a proper thing for us to do, to be creating AI robots that make it easier to kill people and to destroy villages and cities? These are the kinds of moral and ethical questions that the government committee, select committee, doesn't raise, although they do raise the question of doing harm. Well, I think at bottom, these turn out to be religious questions. And the more sensitive we are, not just technophiliacs, people who love technology for the bigger and the better. If it's more complex, that's great. But who actually are reflective about it, and I think that's one of the big challenges. We'll get this religious dimension. Now, I want to point out 5 elements of Teilhard's thought that are very relevant, I think, here. First of all, Teilhard, and sometimes this has been quite controversial, he considered technology to be a phase of the evolutionary process. He did not make this dualism between nature and technology. Is it natural food or is it genetically enhanced food? He included both of those in the evolutionary process. And I happen to think that that's a very profound insight. The world that human beings live in today is so conditioned by technology. All of the Earth's surface, all of the Earth's living creatures are impacted by our technology. And that becomes the nature that we live in. Technology, I would argue, could be understood as the nature that humans have created. Teilhard, secondly, wanted to make it clear that we are part of this evolution. You know, the phenomenon of man, his great work, placed man in human beings in the evolutionary framework. And of course, his fundamental principle was that of complexity consciousness. He thought that there was a directionality in evolution, and that this directionality was towards complexity, and the complexity enhanced consciousness. I think that's very clear in AI robots. They are incredibly complex. And this is one of the big questions that's asked. They are approaching a kind of consciousness, which I think could be analyzed within that Teilhardian framework very well. He also believed that evolution is being pulled toward the Christ Omega. In other words, every stage of evolution, and I would say including AI robots, brings about a new dimension of reality. He was very strong on this, that he said that technology had created a spiral fabric around the planet so that the whole planet was technologized. I think that's very easy to understand today with all of our technology and all of the dependence we have on satellites that enhance our communications and that. He, of course, believed that there was progress in evolution, and the major element of the progress was that it was God pulling us towards Christ Omega. And then finally, the whole process for Teilhard was a process of love. And I think that's very challenging to us as we reflect on AI robots. They can be very definitely part of our desire to act in loving ways. They can also be just the opposite. I think that Teilhardian principle would be very useful for reflecting on AI robots. Well, I hope this gives you something to think about. I hope you have lots of questions. I'll bring it to an end now. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Philip. That was very, very interesting. I've been thinking myself a lot about AI lately, and this was just what I was hoping to hear about. Now, I think, am I right, Sister Kathy, we're going to move toward breakout rooms?
I will be sending you into cyberspace and you will land in a room with about 6 people. Please have a good conversation. In 15 minutes, we'll return and we can engage Phil in all kinds of questions and ideas. See you in a bit. Okay. Okay, here we are. Good. That was great.
I lost the contact for a minute. Am I okay now?
Yeah, you're fine. Yeah. Yeah, you
Okay,
were,
good.
yeah, it must have happened after it was over because now we have, okay, everybody's gone. Good, except Michelle and you and me. Oh, my goodness, that's great. And
Yep, I'm
you,
still here. And Patrick's in the room?
I did send them, yes. Mhm.
Okay, all right.
So it's just the 3 of us now. So at the end too, Phil, if you stay just a minute to say something, you know, like just to get a breath and we'll, you know, before you say
Sure,
goodbye.
sure.
Everybody else will go away. And guess what? I made a big boo-boo. I forgot to record. You heard when it started. I was thinking maybe I would record something in the beginning and I don't know. Like, you know, I have your paper, so maybe I could say the first few words you're going to say. But that made me very sad. But anyway, there'll be a lot of good stuff, I think, here at the end. Yeah, you know, when you're for the questions.
Yeah, that's always the fun part.
Mhm.
But I enjoyed the talk. I enjoyed, Phil, the part about pointing out all those lovely sci-fi explorations of it. And over winter break, I read Becky Chambers' book, A Common Orbit, which has as its major character an AI who's trying to decide whether or not to be embodied or not embodied. And you know, so you know, a lot of the questions you were raising, she kind of raises in that fictional book. So I enjoyed, you know, thinking through that lens as you were talking.
Mm.
Well, that's fascinating. Unfortunately, I haven't kept up, but those writers, they really get very profound. You know, Marge Piercy raises the whole question of whether we have a moral obligation to keep our robots alive, whether it's appropriate to destroy them. And then has anyone read that new novel of Ichiguro, the Clara?
I haven't, but now when you mentioned it, I jotted it down, so that's on my list.
Well, the interesting thing about that is that he's not a science fiction writer. He's written, you know, he wrote Remains of the Day and Never Let Me Go. and he reflects on it sort of as a non-science fiction writer, which makes it less complex than some of the others, but very interesting.
Yeah, no, I mean, those books give you just such a way to play with things, to play with ideas.
Right.
And
So
then
is that a hobby of yours that you read those?
it is. And these days both of my kids have gotten somewhat into it, so it's fun to sort of pass a book around the family. My kids are now kind of grown and out of the house. So it's fun to have something to talk with them about when they call. And
That's right.
What are some of the books that you like the best?
well, I enjoyed there was a 4-book series by Becky Chambers, which I really enjoyed. I'm in the middle of reading something called Babel, which is, and I forget the author's name, but it's set in sort of late Victorian England, and is dealing with language and translation and who has the power. What kind of power does translation give you? So that one I've been enjoying a lot. What else have I read recently? Bunch of short stories written
And of
by.
course, there's so much in movies that I haven't been able to keep up with.
Mm.
Yeah, no, those are crazy. And yeah, no, but it's I enjoy that partly because I enjoy playing with the ideas and the nature used to have at the end of every issue, they used to have a piece of science fiction.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Mm.
one page, and some of it was okay and some of it was good. And I've used some of those when I teach.
Oh, that's
Mhm.
good, yeah. I don't do much science fiction reading, but I read a book called Project Hail Mary.
Oh yeah, me
Did
too.
you read that?
Yeah.
It gives you a sense of the relationship between ETs and us. Do you know, like, I found myself rethinking all of that because of the dynamics. It was really a very beautiful book. This fella's out in space trying to save the world, save the Earth, and meets an ET, and they collaborate and become great friends. And it's just so hopeful. Do imagine that's what it would be great if we could imagine that that's what we would do if we met somebody out there.
Mhm.
But
Yeah.
yeah, it is a way to play around with the ideas. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Well, of course, some of the movies and books are veer towards the sensationalistic, but at the same time, it's interesting how so often there's a kernel of profound thought. Makes me sometimes wonder whether the movie makers are aware of it,
Ah,
or even some of the novelists. But
Yeah.
I
that's
have a close friend who teaches in a medical school, and she says AI and robots are so much in the conversation at the medical school.
mm. Yeah, the
Yeah.
surgeries they do now, too, for one thing.
Right.
Yeah.
And
No, well, I mean, when my son's mother-in-law or mother-in-law to be, they're engaged, had robotic heart surgery, and her husband had non-robotic heart surgery. The two of them had surgery like 3 weeks apart. But she recovered so much more quickly.
mm,
That's
And
what I've heard. That
that too, yeah.
what was it I heard in particular that oh, what is it? The woman's surgery that's so common. The recovery with the robot is so much better.
Oh, that's
yeah,
yeah. Mhm.
Hmm.
yeah. So, it was pretty incredible. I mean, she had surgery on Monday, and by Thursday was home.
Oh,
Mm,
hysterectomy. This is what
mhm, mhm.
Yeah.
Well,
I was told.
that's good. Yeah, that would be better. Yeah, than all that, cutting the body, and you never really heal from it properly.
Yeah.
Well, of course, all these things that they do by putting something in a blood vein or an artery, there's a lot of AI coming into that.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's yeah, it definitely cuts both ways. Yeah, and I was thinking about the war in Ukraine and all the use of the drones.
Mm,
Right.
And that's the flip side of it all.
That's
mm.
right. And the assassinations, we don't hear so much. But when Obama was president, he authorized a number of those assassinations.
Yeah.
And what is it that I read one article said that the people guiding the drones are mostly operating from consoles here in the United States.
Right.
They're
Not anywhere
so
near.
removed. They're
Mm,
so removed from the horrible things that are happening.
mm.
Yeah, that's, I was thinking there is a science fiction book, Marion Zimmer Bradley. She's written a whole series, and she posits a world where people were using things like drones and then made a compact that you couldn't use any weapon that did not put you equally at risk.
Mm,
Yeah,
So, you know, that meant swords,
right.
and pretty much nothing else. But it was an interesting, you know, way of thinking about,
Mhm.
you know, who's at risk. You
right.
know?
Well, those are some of the ethical issues that should be raised.
Mm.
Yeah, but you know, we don't want to talk about it sometimes. And
No, and that's one of the sad ironies of the Ukraine war. We want to prosecute it because we don't want Russia to win, but there's terrible, terrible, terrible damage being done to
Mhm.
Ukraine. It'll take them generations to rebuild.
Mhm.
What's happening to that country is so sad.
yeah,
Right. And why would you do that to a country you want to take over, you know?
Yeah.
Hmm. So Phil, where are you in Chicago?
Pardon?
Where are you in the Chicago area?
I'm in Hyde Park, very close to the university.
Yep, okay. That's I grew up in Carroll Stream and Wheaton. So that was part of my early years.
Oh, I see. Uh-huh.
And it used to be very exciting to go into Chicago.
Mhm.
And oh, I hear the cat.
Yeah, it's about 3.5 minutes, really 4.5,
Okay.
about 4
okay.
minutes. So.
Hmm. The cat is meowing
Oh, the
hideously outside the door.
that's what you were saying. I thought you
Yeah.
said the count.
No, the cat. But hopefully, you know, she'll.
I can't hear it. Yeah,
Okay, if you can't hear it, then we're good.
we're good.
And
Yeah,
as long as she doesn't, you know, howl.
right. Phil, do you still want me to send the paper to everybody?
That's up to you.
Okay. All right, I can do that. Anybody who registered, I can, you know, and do
There's
that.
a lot more detail, of course, in the paper.
Paper, but I thought you did a great summary. I mean, that was great. You know, I just read the paper, you know, too, so I know what
Mhm.
was there. Yeah, you got into a lot of it, so.
Well, some of the
Yeah.
details are fascinating, but they're also distracting from the basic theme.
Uh,
Yeah, it was nice to have an overview.
mhm.
Mm.
What does Patrick do?
He's a philosopher. He teaches philosophy at the college.
Oh, I see. Uh-huh. So he's thinking about those things as a
That's
philosopher.
right. And he's also a big Harry Potter fan.
Oh, really?
That's his claim to fame, but and he does a little bit of teaching of that too. They have a conference every year. They're a riot. It's getting bigger and bigger every year, an academic conference.
Crazy.
Yeah. He's a very nice guy. He's got 2 sons, and I keep forgetting how much they're growing because I don't, you know, I don't see him much, so I don't hear about his sons. But they're in high school already, which is great.
But you live right on the campus, right?
No, I don't. I'm about 10, 12 minutes away.
Oh,
Yeah. It's probably better that way.
but you live in your community.
That's right. Yeah, there are 5 sisters in our house. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, and a very nice house. We rent it from the parish, which helps them. And,
Oh, uh-huh.
and it's not the boxy kind of convents that they built in the 60s. You know, it has a little charm. So they should be back in a minute. They'll be wandering in.
And I'll field the questions from the chat. Kathy,
Sure.
are you going to remind them?
I don't think Patrick thought about it. Yeah, I guess we better do that. When they come back, I'll mention it.
Okay, all right, I'll let you do that, and then I'll do
Maybe
the,
You could start a question or something too.
well, you know, I'll sort something out, or I'll, if there's nothing in the chat, I have lots of questions. Okay.
Is
it's a-
Is that an easel behind you? You're an artist?
I am not an artist. I'm working on a book, and so that's what I use to keep track of each chapter. It's a
Oh, I
big,
see. Uh-huh.
and it works pretty well for me to be able to see kind of the structure of each chapter, and if I got something to stick on there, I got little stickies stuck all over it.
What's the book about?
The book is called Steeped: The Chemistry of Tea.
Uh-huh.
So
Okay.
Very interesting. I can't wait to get a copy.
yeah, this is my 6th book, but the other books, 4 of the other books have all been on theology and spirituality. So this is a whole new genre for me in some ways.
Mm.
Oh, boy. Oh. Mhm.
All right. And people are coming back.
Yeah. So Patrick, where you keep popping over.
Yeah, there I am.
Do you want to remind people about the chat and the questions? Okay, I don't think we did that. So as they come in,
But to remind of what
about the
questions?
questions in the chat, putting.
Okay, all right. So is everybody back? Can you see that?
They're coming.
All right, so,
Let's see, yeah, so I think they're back. Go ahead, go.
all right, so should I invite them to start talking about what came up in their chat?
Yeah.
All right, everybody's back. It's glad to see you all. I just had a wonderful talk with 6 people in my chat. Are there any major ideas that emerged from your chat, particularly questions or ideas that you think might be interesting to bounce off of Phil?
And I would ask that people put them in the chat, so that lets us
Yeah.
kind of,
You can write the question and then we can, collect them and try to get as many answered.
maybe while we're waiting for people to put things in the chat, I'll ask the first question of Phil. So you mentioned the science fiction and fantasy as a way of exploring these issues, and I was wondering if you wanted to talk a little bit about what you feel they bring that perhaps the philosophies don't bring.
Well, of course, they can be philosophically laden. Well, first of all, they bring in so much interesting detail. You know, when you're writing a novel, you depict the characters, you go into quite a bit of detail. Some of it's suggestive and some of it's very explicit. And the interest for me is in those details. For example, the details of the replicants in Blade Runner. You know, that's so absolutely fascinating. If you wanted to deal with that in a discursive, philosophical or theological work, it wouldn't be nearly as interesting. And of course, novelists, artists have a lot of imagination.
Mhm.
And they, for example, one of the most interesting things for me in Blade Runner is that they replicate emotions. So you remember the one replicant, the woman, actually has been programmed with the emotions of another person. And so her emotional reactions are very authentic, but they're not hers. Well, I think that's very, very relevant to companion robots, because, you know, whether it's companion robots for old people or children or sick people, they're trying to, if you look at the advertisements for them, they're building in empathy. Well, of course, how would you build in empathy? That's an interesting question. And I think the artists get into those issues so interestingly and in so much detail.
Yeah, well, thank you. So we have a bunch of questions have now popped up in the chat, and maybe I'll pull one out, which is where or what do you think is the boundary between artificial intelligence and consciousness?
Well, I think that's a very difficult and maybe misleading kind of question. You know, there's so much philosophical writing about consciousness, the philosophy of mind. If you get into that, it's very easy to get lost in the morass of all of that. And of course, you have to have criteria. So what would be your criterion for recognizing consciousness? And what would be your criterion for assessing whether or not a robot had it? I think that question actually is not really worth asking, because it'll end up in an endless discussion. I think that's why I like to use functional categories. Does the robot function like the human being in whatever activity you're talking about? Does it play chess like a human? Well, no, they don't play chess like a human, but they play very good chess. So that's why I use functioning. I like that category, because I don't think the question of those criteria could ever be agreed on. And every thinker is going to have a different criterion, or a slightly different criterion.
Thanks. There are a lot of people were dancing around that question in the chat. Someone would also like to know, Ralph Martinez wants to know, can AI help humanity solve the ecological crisis?
Well, however the crisis is defined, yes, I would think so. It would be a handy resource. And of course, probably in such areas as gathering data, there's probably quite a bit of AI being used now. And of course, environmental issues have lots of data that have to be dealt with. And yeah, I don't know how exactly, but I would think very definitely it's going to be. And I bet that if we had an ecologist, a professional ecologist in the audience, they would be able to tell us about that.
Yeah, I mean, those are clearly our big problems facing us. So Dan wonders, can robots bring about brand new life forms? It seems that AI can't produce things that did not exist before.
Well, I think that all depends what you mean by it. You know, the critical thing about AI now is, in its highest developments, is that it's not operating simply on the basis of pre-programmed information. You know, like Big Blue that played chess. They input all of this information so that Big Blue could think very fast and put it all together. But artificial intelligence today makes its own decisions, in a sense. Do you remember when we put the probe for Mars on the planet on Mars? There was a certain gap where the artificial intelligence in the space vehicle had to make its own decisions, because it took so long for the signal to get back to Earth that they couldn't just set a signal up and have the vehicle respond to it. There were more steps in between there. And I don't know a lot about that, but I think that's extremely important. And that's what makes AI so interesting. That AI doesn't just respond to programming. It is designed in a way that it can make some of its own decisions.
This is pretty
I'm
cool.
putting that very, very crudely, but I think that's the heart of it.
Yeah. Seraphim wonders, where does AI fit in the intersection between intelligence, which is problem solving, and wisdom, which identifies the problem and discerns which are actually human problems and which are just delusions of our appetites?
Yeah, that's the big question, isn't it? The relationship between intelligence and wisdom. Yeah. Well, that's a question we have to probe. By the way, I wanted to give an example of AI. You know, I have AI in my smartphone, of course, and since my vision is deteriorating, I do a lot of voice recognition. And I've noticed one really interesting thing, and I sign my message as Phil, and voice recognition always spells that F-I-L-L. When I turn off the microphone, it automatically changes it to P-H-I-L. I'd like to know what it is, and I think it has something to do with AI. I wonder what it is in my cell phone that self-corrects after I turn the microphone off. That's a fascinating thing to me. But that shows you how common AI is. I mean, if you've got a smartphone, you've got quite a little bit of AI in there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And maybe the last question, which is several people are asking it in different ways, is not just about is AI conscious, but is also is a robot conscious? Does life equal consciousness? How would you define life? Which is a huge question.
Oh yeah, well, see, that now you're discovering my style. I don't. There are certain questions that I've decided are never going to be resolved, and so I don't spend a lot of time on them. And you've hit two of them. Of course, of course, robots are not living, but if they function like living creatures, what's the line between them being just machines and behaving so much like humans that they're human-like? And the same with consciousness. But I think, you know, if Patrick's a philosopher, he can say more about consciousness and the philosophy of mind. But I think that we do so much in science and technology on function. And you know, the old Chinese room puzzle and the Turing test. At what point can you say that a computer is thinking like a human? Well, you don't really know. So you put them in a room with a curtain over it, and you ask the question, are they answering these questions like a human would answer them? And if they are, then you say, de facto, that's functioning consciousness. De facto, that's functioning human. Of course, they're not humans. And I think that's a fascinating thing about AI that is taking us some leaps forward. It is raising that question of the functioning becoming so important and so close to what the humans can do. And of course, if you have robots on the battlefield, not just drones, they're going off and doing a lot of things that are human-like. So the terms godlike and human-like are very important for me, and also the term functioning as God and functioning as humans.
Yeah. A couple of people have weighed in with about how the voice recognition works. So
Oh, good. Tell me.
So repetitive algorithms trigger the corrections. You correct it and it learns what you've corrected. And the voice recognition autocorrect is reacting to your voice, but when you turn the mic off, then it's drawing from its memory.
Okay. See, that's a lot more complicated than I would think of when I hold my phone in my hand.
Right, I agree. And I think here's our last question for the night is, can AI love?
Oh, that's the question that comes up in the novel Clara. Well, I guess the way you'd have to put it is, can the robot behave in loving ways? And the answer is yes. Can the robot love? I doubt it. These are all bringing up the same kinds of issues, aren't they? It's functioning as if in a loving way, but is the emotionality of love in a companion robot? Well, of course not. And in Clara, but she certainly has the algorithms and what goes along with that to produce loving behavior towards this teenage girl that she's the companion to. If you Google some of these AI robots, there's one called Sophia, and at the time that I wrote this, a year and a half ago, Sophia was considered to be the most sophisticated robot in existence. She's been interviewed on TV. She has South African citizenship, all sorts of strange things there. And of course, the whole panoply of emotions she can deal with. But is she loving? Is she conscious? I think that's highly unlikely. Is she a human? I mean, to become a citizen, you'd think you have to be a human. No, she isn't. But she certainly is behaving in ways that are almost equivalent. But we do have to say we're a long ways, though, from robots being human. We're a long, long, long way. But there's so much research. There's so many researchers working on this, and they're pouring so many billions of dollars into the research that naturally they're going to make progress.
Yep, I think there's been a tremendous amount of progress just in my lifetime, and I wonder what it will look like over the next decade. I'm going to turn this back to Patrick.
Okay.
Which I think I can do.
All right. Thank you, everybody, for, I think we had over 45, maybe even approaching 50 attendees today. I just want to say thank you to everyone for taking the time to come to our presentation and to see Phil speak. The entire board works very hard to try to find just the right speakers every year. And but the whole thing depends on all of you showing up, and our move to Zoom has really allowed us to expand the people who are able to participate, and we're really thinking this is a good fit for us. Wouldn't you say that's true, Sister
That's
Kathy?
true. I think
Yeah.
so.
Also, I would like to remind everyone that this is part one of a three-part series of events. So 2 and 3 are still to come. So if you haven't got onto the the mailing list or the email list, make sure you go to the website and do that, and then you can make sure that you are reminded about when these new the second two events in the series will come up. All right, Sister Kathy, is there anything else that I should mention?
Just to thank Phil for coming to being with us. And I'm just thrilled, and certainly I'm so happy to see all of you who came to and listen. But thank you, Phil, for your insight. It's very, very interesting perspective on all of this. I think, you know, everybody knows a little bit about.
Well, thank you very much. I really enjoyed it.
Good.
I wish I could answer all those questions, but that's the way it goes. You didn't talk to us about philosophy of mind, Patrick.
Yeah, well,
And they're still
I-
coming. The comments are still coming.
I don't think
I'll
I'm on the
send you
dock.
chat when we're finished. So thanks again. Have a wonderful evening, and do come to the next two events. I think you'll enjoy them. All right.
Thank you, everybody.
Good night.
Good night. I was hoping he would stay,
Huh.
but he didn't. Okay, let me stop the recording.